Same old trouble, villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome once again to Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wasta, aka Fallout Fury, and with me, as always, is my crossbones.
Crossbones.
My red skull.
That sounds dirty. I do not crossbones with him, just so that you know.
My neighbor across the hallway that's really my ex-girlfriend's niece, 50 years placed out of time, that is spying on me and doesn't tell me.
Agent 13, because Jenn was supposed to be Agent 13.
Oh, I'm sorry.
See?
It's fair.
And with us also is the lovely and talented, the real Agent 13, the Baronessa, Ms. Jenn Fowler.
Thank you. And on a special episode of Graphically Novel, we have our co-host from RetConversations, Leia Cameron, joining us today. Hey, Leia.
Hi, everybody. Try to get me to shut up about Captain America.
No.
In true RetConversations fashion, we will say, with the lights out, it's less dangerous. Here she is now. Entertain us. It's Leia Cameron.
Why are you like this?
If you want to go on about that ass, you go right ahead.
What?
America's ass.
Oh, America's ass. That's right.
Yes.
Yes, so we will be talking about Captain America today. It's a long time coming. One of the heroes that we discussed in our first ever episode with just Bear and I, we talked about the Avengers.
The Ultimates.
Yep, and we did the Ultimates, and we did the Joss Whedon, the first Avengers movie. Today we'll be talking about all things Captain America, but probably focusing the most on Winter Soldier.
I didn't go back and watch the movie from, what was it, like the 80s?
Oh, God.
Oh, the god-awful one?
Yeah, I didn't go back and watch that because, A, I didn't have time, and B, I didn't want to do that to myself.
Right, yeah. No,
that's fair.
I'm trying to drink less.
Yeah, do not blame you. Do not blame you at all. So, Leia, we've had you on enough that we know the story of you and comic books, but I have a specific one that this is in some ways kind of a preview to our next season, because next season we'll be doing all of our favorites. So specifically, Bear has the Hulk episode, Jenn has the Sandman episode planned. I'm going to do, Spider-Man is going to be an episode next season. And this is kind of Leia's all things favorite episode. So the question that I will preview for next season, that I will try first on you, Leia, is out of everything in comic book, why you are drawn specifically to Stephen Grant Rogers, James Buchanan Barnes, Natalia, don't know her middle name, Romanoff.
Natasha Alyanova Romanova.
There you go.
They even said it in The Winter Soldier, babe.
They did say it in The Winter Soldier. I did not catch it. But what draws you specifically to these three characters out of all of Marvel?
That's a really good question. I think that, so there's a kind of a couple reasons. So the first one being that Captain America is a very easy character to relate to in terms of ideals. Accepting the kind of weird jingoistic part, in the comic books when he was like during the 60s or whatever, where he was kind of a nationalist.
Right.
For the most part, outside of that weird phase of the character's existence, he's always been an excellent representation of what the American dream should be or is. He's an idealist, right? He's pretty famously egalitarian, anti-racist. He stands up for the little guy as well as the big guy. He's not a corporate shill. Like he is just out to do as much good as he possibly can and help as many people as he possibly can. And like goals, that's the kind of stuff that I love. So for sure that's it. For Bucky, there's a lot. I was very, very involved in the fandom community, especially during like the years of about like 2013 to about 2017 or so, and there's a lot of stuff like I could do a whole thesis on why a lot of women relate to Bucky Barnes / the Winter Soldier, and being a trauma survivor and coming back after that trauma and how you deal with that trauma and whatnot. So there's a lot of I have a lot of deep thoughts about Bucky Barnes.
Yeah.
But and this is another character too that, we had his bodily autonomy violated. He he wasn't in control of his actions. He faces, guilt and regret and remorse, and how he chooses to deal with that, and how he chooses to turn around and turn it around and do things for good too. So there's a lot to be said about that. And Nat is just badass. Like she's just cool as hell. There's a whole other episode we did on this specifically of me talking about Nat.
Sure.
So I won't take up too much of anybody's time there, but they've always appealed to me. And really the thing that got me into these three characters very specifically was the MCU. Like I was aware of them prior to that. And I had read the Winter Soldier arc a couple years after it came out, and really enjoyed it, but the movies bringing it to life really did it for me. I know that I've mentioned this on our show before, and I probably mentioned it, on Graphically Novel as well, but like my main area of expertise really is the MCU.
Right.
So that's kind of my jam, and I love how the movies bring things to life in such a great way. I mean, when they cast Chris Evans as Captain America, it was like they grew that man in a lab to be Captain America.
Yeah, agreed.
When they just looked at the Fantastic Four and went, "Listen, we can do so much better with you."
Yes. It was definitely miscasting there, for sure.
So we actually read the original Winter Soldier, the first part, with the second part being optional. I provided it to everybody in case they wanted to.
Just a lot of material.
It was a lot of material.
I got into the second one. I did not get to finish it. I wanted to, but...
Right. So I guess, Bear, we'll start with you. What did you think of the comic?
It was very interesting. I loved it. It does grab you right away in the beginning. No spoilers, but like some shit goes down right away in the beginning, and you're kind of left going, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So major shit goes down at the ending of the first issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, what the what?
Yeah. My only problem that I had with it personally is they do a lot of flashback. Like everything's just obviously taking place in modern day, in present day, but there's a lot of flashbacks that they do where it seems like there's maybe more extraneous information than you need, and like I kind of lose it sometimes in the flashback scene. Other than that, I think the whole graphic novel is pretty amazing.
Jen?
Yeah, there was a lot there.
It's a ton of material.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot
Most
there.
of it is really good material, though.
Yeah, no, generally I find that when I'm first introduced to that media, I'm not as into it but I really found the story compelling. It was even though there was a lot there, it was not an arduous read.
Yeah. There are moments, I mean, you're going to have that with any comic, but there are moments where you're going through and you'll just be turning pages, and then you'll get to a couple of pages that are just walls of text.
Yeah.
But it's usually text that needs to happen for a reason. So it's not really a slog. It's not like when we were going through Watchmen.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not Hickman's X-Men run.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's not. What did we do? From
Hell.
It's not From Hell. It's not Watchmen. It's not that bad.
It's not the
But there are
one.
moments where there's
more.
just a lot going on the page that is being talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to ask Leia this question because she was the one that recommended it and probably has it mostly memorized. This was actually the first time for me reading it, and like I said, there were some shocking things that happened right away. There is a lot of dialogue, but I guess in wall of text areas. But I guess I'm used to that being a frequent comic book reader, so I was a little more lenient on that. All of it being relevant was extremely. Like you bring up From Hell, where it's like, and then 20 years ago, this man went outside. It's like a Joe Biden story, right? The man just, or the comic, some of them just ramble.
Yeah.
This
it's
is
like Grandpa as told by Grandpa Simpson.
Right. And I was wearing a shield on my belt, which was the style at the time. But some of the things that I noticed weren't even necessarily what's in the comic, but the time that the comic came out. Anybody that's not familiar with this would be forgiven for thinking that the Winter Soldier story was something that was done a long time ago and it was fully established in Marvel lore. This is 2005. To give you a little bit of context, Iron Man, the beginning of the MCU, was 2008. Which means that this was out, not even 10 years, 9 years by the time Winter Soldier came out, the Captain America Winter Soldier movie. So Winter Soldier was a fairly new character. Bucky wasn't. And in fact, for those who have read comics for a long time, there used to be a phrase called Bucky dead. It was the only two people in Marvel that stayed dead were Uncle Ben and Bucky.
Yep.
Oh.
And now it's just Uncle Ben.
Yep.
So now it's just Uncle Ben dead?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and they don't even say that. People, you could tell some old school comics people, they'll still say Bucky dead.
And it's so funny too that like when they announced this movie and the movie came out and stuff like that, as you said, it had only been out for I think a little less than a decade, and it was, you're right, so ubiquitous that it was just kind of assumed that everybody knew that Bucky was the Winter Soldier. And yet I remember very clearly on that midnight screening going to see the film and them doing the iconic panel recreation of the Bucky reveal, and people in my theater just legitimately gasped. They were like, oh my God, it's Bucky. And I was like, yeah, bitch, like but there were people that really didn't know. They still, were I mean, I feel like it was kind of the worst kept secret in Marvel. But yeah, there were people who just didn't keep up with the comics and were just like, I can't believe it,
Right. Yeah, I mean, this comic was happening a year before Civil War, the first Civil War comic.
That's wild.
Yeah, I know. It's nuts. It's time-wise, it's weird to me because it fits into that same category. Like when I talk about the Civil War movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, Black Panther appeared in a movie before Spider-Man did. Now, bitch, they're the same movie.
Right.
It's just that Black Panther's in the beginning of the movie, exactly. And Spider-Man is in the end, toward the end of the movie, and there's a shit ton of shit that happens between it.
It's a very narrow technicality, but yes, technically true. Technically right, which is the best kind of right.
Right. But yeah,
it's the actually right.
Yes.
Actually,
as I push up my glasses. Yeah. But there is so much I want to say about this comic, but I think we should stray away from it because other than just saying
because it's really good and you should really go back and read the source material for 2 whole movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not only like you get a lot of Sharon Carter during this period. You get a lot of obviously Bucky. You get other characters that show up and actually adds a little bit to where they are. Just
name drop, just for grins. You get Namor.
Yeah, Namor shows up.
Namor, however you pronounce it.
Yeah. It's really and I think it added more. We just talked about Hawkeye last episode. We were
Brilliant.
Yes. Yeah. But we were discussing how there were kind of cameos in there. Like at one point he's hanging out with Luke Cage, but it's like Luke Cage walking into a scene and then out of a scene. Like, and there's no real point to it.
Or like Hawkeye is just walking through the room and like Luke Cage and Spider-Man are playing video games.
Right.
They're like, hey dude, what's up? And they just move on.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's all we needed to do.
It's like the Deadpool 2 X-Men cameos. Like it's in the background, but
they're like, oh shit, he's in the mansion. Close the door, don't let him see us.
Right. But in this, they include characters when they need to be included and for a specific reason, to kind of let you know what's going on. It's almost as if they were building it knowing that it would something that would change.
Like when we did Peacemaker and, the Superman, Batman,
Oh
everybody
my
shows up
God,
at the
yes.
end. It's like, thanks, showing up now, awesome, work's done, get the fuck out.
Yeah. And he makes fun of Aquaman on the way out.
Right? Because he likes to fuck fish.
So instead, I'm going to pivot over to Captain America: The Winter Soldier, the movie, just because I just watched it. It's very fresh. And is this the most perfect Marvel movie?
Oh yeah, 100%. For the record, I'd like to expose myself a little and let everybody
Video
let
back
everybody
on.
know that I saw this
I need
movie
a copy
in
of
the
this.
theater 9 times.
Sweet Jeebus. You're like me with Dune.
Part of it was like, I saw it at midnight, like a normal person on release night. And then every person I knew, because they knew that I was really jazzed about it, literally every person I knew was like, well, will you go see it with me? And of course, me being the generous and kind person that I am was like, hell yeah, brother. And went to go see it. Like, I saw it with my sister. I saw it with Meredith and Mike. I saw it with my friend Risa. I saw it with, I went by myself once, but it was, and I mean, that was also too before like the advent of Disney Plus or anything like that. So I genuinely didn't know when I was going to be able to see it again.
Right.
And so I just wanted to absorb as much of that movie into my skin as I possibly could. It was so good.
I have this image of the one time you went on your own, just kind of staring at your cell phone for a little bit and then being like, well, hey, Leia, you want to go and see the Captain America movie with me? Well, yes, Leia, I absolutely would.
Are you free this afternoon? I think I might be.
I might be.
I can pencil you in.
I believe there's a matinee at 3 p.m.
Yeah, I think it actually was a matinee when I went to see it.
Called it. That reminds me of, so for Dune, and it is totally off on a tangent, but for Dune, I got rented out an entire theater, invited all of my friends. I didn't care if, they some of them tried to throw money at me. I tried to turn it down. Some of them stuffed it in my pockets anyways. But so everybody that wanted to show up showed up, and I was literally like, I had friends that were like, we should pay you though. And I looked at, it was Kat specifically that was like, no, we can pay you. And I'm like, you don't have to pay me. No, we can pay you. And I looked at her and I said very specifically, I don't care if I rent out an entire theater to myself and I'm the only one in it and I'm watching what will very soon be my favorite movie ever. That just makes the experience better for me.
Right, totally.
We already start it up here. Every person that's added that I've specifically invited just ticks it up another
just
one.
Goes up another notch.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the week, and that was on a Saturday for a matinee, and by the time Monday rolled around, I had watched the movie 4 more times.
Yeah, like it's such an excellent film, and has infinite like rewatchability value. It never gets stale, like at least in my opinion. And it's just an impeccably crafted like spy thriller. And
what's your favorite part of the favorite scene in the whole movie?
Really, honestly, my favorite scene is the iconic, Bucky, who the hell is Bucky, reveal, because it is lifted off the page. Now, prior to recording this podcast, I was frantically searching my omnibus for that image and couldn't find it for some reason, but it sticks in my head like a side-by-side comparison, and it is picture perfect. It was just so well done. And that really sets off, part of the reason that I suggested that this particular plot line for this recording was because really the first 3 movies in Captain America's arc are pretty much based on this book.
Yeah.
You can't have the, even the first Avenger, Bucky is there for most of the movie, and losing him obviously is pretty much the kind of focal point of a lot of Steve's life and actions afterwards. And, so the impact that having Bucky with him, he colors his entire character arc. You can't have one without the other thing. Without Bucky, there is no second movie or even Civil War.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why I also ask, is the as close to perfect as we got in the Marvel movie. I enjoy all of them for you, Thor: Dark World. I enjoy all of them for different reasons, but watching this today, I only found one sour note for me, and it was an actually, which I actually felt kind of bad about. And when they're entering like Zemo's area and they see the picture of Howard, and
You mean Zola's area?
Zola's, thank you, Zola's area, and they see the picture of Howard. Nat is like, "Oh, there's Howard Stark," and Cap's like, "Yeah." And then she goes, "Who's the girl?" Natasha abso-fucking-lutely knows who Peggy Carter is.
Oh, she absolutely does.
As do.
There is
Yeah.
no way in hell she doesn't know who Peggy Carter is.
That's my only, like, really?
Did you think
No.
though? I guess that's that's interesting, because maybe it's just my knowledge of the characters. I didn't think that question was asked in seriousness. You know, like I don't think I think, again, she's a spy. I think she knew damn well who that was. She wanted Steve to tell her.
She wanted
Well,
backstory. She wanted.
Yeah.
Well,
She
yeah,
wants
because
the
she's been trying to get him to be romantically interested in someone, but she also said, "Oh, it's Mr. Stark."
Yeah.
And,
Right,
and
and Steve said
Steve
Howard.
said Howard.
But,
Right.
okay, we discussed this in the Black Widow episode that we did about how this is also the best Nat movie.
Yes.
Because even Nat's own movie, she was overshadowed.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
Don't even go there.
And Iron Man 2, nope. Age of
Yeah.
Ultron, nope.
They did my girl so dirty in the MCU, except
Right.
for
No
movie,
kidding.
except for Winter Soldier. That's
But-
the best one we get.
When Nat is being sarcastic or joking around or doing basically what we're saying, she has a certain inflection in her voice that is absent during the girl, which is why I call it out. Because she is very specifically, and this is one of the only movies that she's kind of fun, snarky like that.
Yeah.
She's
pretty
she's a
much.
whole person in this film.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
But I mean, it just kind of stopped me dead. Had she added that little bit of snark to the question, I would have been like, "Oh, you're trying to get Steve's goat. That's kind of your dynamic." But it was played serious.
I did not think that she was trying to tease Steve. I did think that she was trying to get information from Steve, because that's her habit. And what I mean by information is not like, "Hey, I need this guy to tell me that's Peggy Carter," but kind of fleshing out where
Right.
what his
feelings
were.
were. Yeah.
And for him to not say anything gives her the answer he was looking for.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. You know, she's smarter than that, you know, like than trying to, you know, you see any, like your picture of your old ex-girlfriend and your friend who works with her or works for the, you know, the same I think Peggy was retired at that time.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it's, you know, to not know who your old, I guess, CEO or whatever is of the place where you work, like, that's bullshit.
Right.
You know, and so I think she was more trying to kind of get a read on if Steve still had feelings for her, what the situation was with that, you know, that kind of thing. So, because as we saw in, I believe, Endgame, Peggy had a picture of Steve on her desk.
Yes.
And so
Yes, that was Endgame. Yeah. That's
you
when they
know,
go back in time.
Yeah.
So clearly, again, you know, Nat working for SHIELD, she would have had occasion to be in that office prior to Peggy's, you know, retirement. You know, so she almost certainly saw that.
Also in this movie is the little bit from Peggy where she says Steve, in his infamous rescue in the first Captain America movie, rescued who would become her husband.
Yeah.
And that is never referenced.
It is
ever
never
again.
referenced.
Yeah.
No, ever
Or
again.
anywhere else.
Yeah. And I think
Not even in the Agent Carter series.
no, and all, like, as an aside, what a great series. It's a shame they
Yes.
never had a second season
Or a third.
or a third.
It was a fantastic one and done.
Yeah.
Good
limited
companion
series.
piece to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah.
But no, I loved that series and I guess this does relate to what we're talking about. Part of the reason I love that series is it does set up both the Red Room and the Winter Soldier program.
Yes.
And it is so underrated for that reason. Like it like people do not a lot of people just simply haven't watched it, and I was like, it gives you so much fascinating backstory on what happened, like where these programs came from.
I will say even the disappointing second and third seasons do add a lot to the world of the MCU, the background world.
Yeah.
And especially if you go to the last season Shield, where they pull a character from Agent Carter into their team.
Nice.
Now that you say that, I don't know if I ever actually watched all the way to the end of Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I really liked the last season. A lot of people did not, but I thought it was, for what it was, fantastic kind of showing of what would come later in the MCU.
I lost so much steam in
Space?
No.
Oh.
In The Matrix.
Oh, yeah, that was the
Space? Yeah, like I just lost the steam through The Matrix and just didn't get it back, and I don't think I actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I ever actually finished the series.
Evil Fitz got me. Evil Fitz is the greatest character
my
that has
God.
ever been.
I'll give you that.
Hydra
but-
Fitz was so fucking good. But anyway. And then Ghost Rider's right after that. So
Ghost Rider was amazing.
Yeah.
They need to make that Ghost Rider
Robbie
real
Reyes.
bad.
Yeah. Absolutely. Agreed. But back to Captain America. So Bear, since you had just piped up, is there, in your opinion, is there a Marvel movie that you would watch, like that you would consider to be closer to perfect?
Closer to perfect than Winter Soldier? You know, I was just going through them. Just did a rewatch not that long ago. Like,
I mean, that
chronological order.
knowing
rewatch.
you as I do, the closest I can think you is Ragnarok.
Ragnarok is good.
It's
and
not
I
close
like
to
it.
perfect.
It is not perfect.
Yeah.
Probably the most perfect of everything, out of everything. Honestly, I think I might have to go with Ultron.
Age of Ultron?
Yeah.
What?
I'm just letting you
Leia's
know
like,
you're
I
fighting.
thought you were my friend.
You're fighting
we're
right now.
about to fight.
Never speak to me again.
Right? It's honestly, it's a toss-up, I think, between 1 and 2, between the first Avengers and the second one, because I love how they put everybody together in the first one, and I kind of love how things are starting to fall apart by the second one.
That's an understatement.
I mean, they're not even starting to fall apart; they're goddamn falling apart.
Yeah, crumbling
But
into pieces.
They introduce and kill an Avenger in the same film.
Right?
Yeah.
But also, we also introduce Vision, and I love how Vision gets introduced, because everybody's having this fight, and that's probably one of my reasons why I say it's almost perfect, is because you have that moment of, listen, like Banner and Stark sitting there, and they're bantering back and forth, and they're having this moment of, listen, we've already fucked this up once. Do you really want to do this again? And nobody trusts each other, and everybody's about to have a fight, and Thor just drops in and is just like, I had a vision. Fuck y'all. This is happening.
In a very, very Thor moment.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most Thor moments in all of the MCU. If you're going by comic book character, because yes, Thor is very much this happened, now we're not debating it. Kabam!
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just that toss-up for me. I have a hard decision between Avengers 1 and 2, because there's so many good lines.
I know
There's
why.
so much good interaction.
We've never specifically called it out on this show, but knowing you as I do, you are a big fan of Catalyst.
Yes.
So it's not that Hulk is the strongest, it's that Hulk is a catalyst for a lot of things. That's why he's your favorite character. Age of Ultron, the rest of the MCU, the rest of at least that phase, the Infinity Stones phase, really is kicked off when it hits Age of Ultron. All of the stepping stones really start being, now when it comes to what was done with certain characters and things like that, I mean that's more of a why I watch a movie. But from a Catalyst point of view, I will say that the longest lasting repercussions should have come out of Winter Soldier, but did come out of.
Yeah, that's that's a really interesting point. Like, Age of Ultron was such a mixed bag. I up until Eternals came out, I said it was my least favorite MCU film. Because
I do want to remind you that Thor: The Dark World still does exist.
I will
You know
watch.
what?
I will watch Thor: The Dark World any day over Eternals, which I only saw once, and I was like, when is the plot gonna happen? Like, when are they getting to the fireworks factory? And they never do.
When I went back through and did my timeline order watch just like a month or so ago, I got to Dark World and I was just like, you know, in retrospect, it's not that bad. The problem is pacing and that it's all action with no development.
Right. But
So,
yeah, I mean, the
compared to Eternals, it's
The
actually
opposite.
awesome.
my beef with Age of Ultron for a long time is that, like, yes, you do get Scarlet Witch, you briefly get Quicksilver, you get Vision. They all go on to be very, very important in the MCU. So like
Except for
getting
you,
these characters are, you know, is great. However, in terms of the other established characters that are in the film, everyone is acting wildly out of character. Like the entire time. You know, like the one that always sticks in my head is Hulk asking Stephen Grant Rogers, 40-year-old version, that how to handle women. Like, what is that? What is that about? And Steve is like, oh, let me tell you how to get the chicks, my dude. And I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Well,
you know,
well,
and
like
I-
Bruce, you know how a woman's breast feels like sand?
I agree with you, and I actually was hoping for some plot device that explained it.
yeah, me too. I was like, is it the cosmic cube? Is everybody
Right.
just, you know,
Are they the, you know, like alternate dimension versions of themselves? What's
Right.
going on?
right. And then, you know, Nat suddenly deciding, and this was the thing that I hate, just the terrible writing, which was, you know, basically several characters being like, as you know, Nat has been horny for Bruce for the past like 6 movies. And it's like,
What?
said is essentially like 5 different times, like somebody like looking directly into the camera and be like, as you know, you know, these people are very into each other, when like in reality that is at no point was ever established in any previous film, outing, clip, trailer, or even like a deleted scene. Like, it's not there, guys.
It's kind of like in most of the early MCU, I always put an asterisk under things, like an editor's note, and say, for repercussions of this movie, please see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's where all of the world changing happened. Like Winter Soldier, for example, the end, Nat releases all of these files. The only time that's even mentioned is in Civil War, and it's why Zemo can do what he does.
Yeah.
Like, it's used as a one-off. I know, like, look at the leaks, WikiLeaks, and all this other shit. Zemo's not the only motherfucker that's pouring through all of those reports.
You know, somebody recently, not super recently, but recently was like, you know, they brought up the same point. They're like, you know, Nat dumped all of Hydra's like files, intel, info, etc., onto, you know, essentially a WikiLeaks type site. And nobody has ever referenced this going forward. Like, nobody did anything. Nobody seemed to have been arrested or anything like that. Like, you know, in the real world, this wouldn't happen. And I'd like to direct everybody's attention to some hearings that are going on in Congress right now. You know, it was like, no, actually, this is pretty true to life. It's like, oh, wow, you know, it turns out our government is corrupt from the top down. Does anybody want to do anything about this? Everybody's like, nah, not really. Anyways.
Well, they did, though.
But meanwhile, I've been on a
put
government watch list since 1995 because I got the Anarchist Handbook in text format off of a BBS.
Right. They did do something. They did one thing at the end. They took the heroes and put them on trial.
Well,
they stuck Nat up there because she was the only one they could honestly find.
Right.
And
because she wanted to be found.
Yeah, because she wanted to be found. And they stuck her up there and they said, why shouldn't we throw you in jail? Because if you wanted to, you'd have done it already.
Right.
Fuck off, bye.
Right.
Yeah.
In a very same kind of Tony Stark way that he does, except without the peace sign and the...
Yeah, like...
And without Gary Shandling saying, fuck you too, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little inconsistent, but... And then the other part, you know, to tie it back into the theme here, the other part I didn't like about that movie is we had just come off of Winter Soldier, and that was I believe the movie that came out like right after. Zero mention of Bucky, the Winter Soldier, Steve's problems, nothing. It was like, and Whedon actually came out on record and was like, yeah, I didn't reference anything in phase 2 because I didn't personally write and direct it, so it didn't happen.
Right.
That felt very much to me like all of the Avengers movies were supposed to be standalone stuff, separate from everything else. That's really kind of how that felt up until we got to
Endgame and
Infinity War first, but then both of those two. But like the first one and then Age of Ultron felt very much like they were supposed to be separate from everything else. Yeah, we're gonna bring all the characters in, but it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's there, but I'm not acknowledging it.
The only
that was his intent. That was his 100% his intent, is to be like, yeah, I know it's supposed to be all connected, and I know that we're supposed to like weave in other people's plot lines and stuff that's happened between the first Avengers movies and the second one, but I just elected not to do that because I don't care.
Yeah.
And so that's why we get people acting wildly out of character. We get bad dialogue. We get there's
kind of bad dialogue. It just depends on who's
speaking.
Who's speaking at the time, because me being the Hulk fan that I am, these are the only times that we actually get to see Banner doing Banner things.
Sure, yeah,
and
absolutely.
Banner got all of the good lines, which is why I like those two movies are perfect for me. When he's literally, you got Mark Ruffalo sitting there and he's looking at the Scarlet Witch and just like, I could choke you out and never change a shade.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yes! I know the producers or the director's a dick, but God, that was good!
Yeah, definitely not a perfect film. Again, was my least favorite, but I understand also like its relevance to the greater MCU and how that so much came out of it that got us to where we're at now in phase 4, about to be phase 5. So grudging respect, but it could have been way better. and Sir not appearing in this film, James Buchanan Barnes, it had more impact than we didn't let him have.
So Jen, closest to perfect Marvel film, are you gonna go with Winter Soldier?
Well, I mean, I have so less skin in this game than anyone on this show. And I really love Winter Soldier. But I feel like perfection.
Well, closest to perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that Winter Soldier is probably, in my opinion, closest to what I would like because of the characterizations of the people in that movie. Like, I think it's very true to who they are. I love the introduction of Sam Wilson in this movie. Maria Hill actually gets to do something better than any other movie. Fury is good and doing Fury shit, faking his own death and whatever.
Right.
It's all good. Black Widow is fucking amazing, and I think that it is one of the only movies where she actually gets to be vulnerable.
Sure.
Without like her movie sucked. Like the vulnerability in that movie felt so forced compared to the micro interactions that she has with Steve Rogers in The Winter Soldier. Like, I feel like there's more.
Seriously, just told. Like the moments of like, who do you want me to be?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, just in exchanges of looks between them, there is more vulnerability in that 10 seconds than there was in the entire Black Widow movie.
Yeah.
Which is so weird. Same actress.
Yep.
We know Scarlett Johansson can do
the director.
Yeah.
The director, I understand that actors are amazing, but the director on a movie has the last word of how they look on film.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there are excellent actors who are in movies with bad directors and they look terrible. See the most recent Star Wars movies.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately,
well, not the most recent, the mid-recent.
That particular film also was kind of a weird victim, like a holdover victim of Ike Perlmutter being in control of Marvel Studios before Feige. And I mean, originally the Black Widow movie was actually supposed to be the first in the MCU. And he was like, absolutely not. Nobody cares about women doing things. And so it was pushed off, it was pushed off, it was pushed off because he was very insistent that nobody wanted to see a movie about a woman doing anything. And then when he was out, Feige was finally like, okay, now we can have, Captain Marvel and we can have Black Widow. But at that point, it was too late almost because her story was over before the movie came out.
Right.
And so I had a lot of reservations about how that film was going to go because everybody was like, oh, it's it's a prequel, and I was like, prequels generally suck.
Yeah.
They generally are very, very bad and aren't worthwhile. Hopefully this one, what I wanted to see out of a prequel is I wanted to see her training with Bucky. I wanted to see her and Bucky prior to them going to in the Red Room, because that's comics canon, right? And so I was like, that's all I wanted. I wanted that Soviet, the Cold War romance type thing.
I feel like if that was going to be done, though, it would have been referenced because she knows who the Winter Soldier is, but because of a certain mission.
Well, there is that one line where, he's like choking her out or whatever, and she's like, you could at least remember me.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think she's referring to that mission at that point, but
it was open-ended enough that
right.
And that's what I was hoping was going to come out of it. We saw I remember seeing the trailer, for, I think it was Age of Ultron of her like doing ballet and her time in the Red Room. And I was like, holy shit, here it comes. And I never got that payoff at any point. It was never acknowledged, which concerned me because I was like, well, originally when the film came out, Captain America, the mantle of Captain America had at one point been Bucky and like Winter Soldier Bucky. And so I was like, that's where, and they teased that so hard.
Yeah.
They were like, it's coming, because there wasn't a single movie that Bucky was in that he didn't have the shield at one point, that he didn't, wield the shield. Like they kept pushing that really hard, and then they were like, actually, Sam Wilson will be Captain America, and that hadn't even been written at that point.
But I think
pivoted.
I don't know. I am happy where we are at this moment in time. I'm happy with what they did with that in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because Sam passes it up, and Bucky is basically saying, I wanted it. Steve chose you, and you gave it away. And that is the center focus kind of that series. And I loved that because if Steve had just given the shield to Bucky, Bucky should have been Captain America. But I don't know that in the MCU, Bucky would be the best Captain America. I think Sam Wilson makes a better Captain America, mostly for what the symbol of Captain America is.
Oh, absolutely. Like that's not any shade whatsoever towards Falcon and Winter Soldier or Sam Wilson as Captain America, because it's excellent. But like I said, I mean, when those movies were coming out, that storyline, he wasn't Captain America. Like he did, it hadn't been written yet, so we just didn't know. So I was like, oh, they're clearly going towards a Bucky Cap storyline. And then they opted not to do that. But you cannot do Bucky Cap without Bucky and Nat being in a relationship, because the whole part of that, like from the comics, is like he's not very good at being Captain America, and Nat is constantly pulling his ass out of the fire. Like,
which is great
all the time. So I mean, it just seems like that would have been a really cool opportunity. And I guess I mean, there is going to be a Sam Wilson Captain America, and of course, or Sam Wilson Captain America movie, I should say, Captain America 4, as yet untitled, but almost certainly Bucky will be in his role there too. So that'll be fun to watch. I love watching those two interact. The chemistry is just impeccable.
Well, I think I had the conversation with you when Civil War happened in the backseat.
In the backseat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you move your seat? No.
No.
And I was like,
And then-
I would watch an entire movie of just these two, and then they gave us a
And then
show
they
of
gave
just
us-
those two, and it
Yeah.
was fantastic.
They gave us what, 8 episodes, 10 episodes?
6.
Yeah.
Is it only 6?
They're all
Okay.
6.
6. But yeah, no, I back in 2016 when Civil War came out, I do recall turning to Mike and Meredith in the theater, and I was giving them their own show, which is something
Right.
I frequently say when somebody does anything I enjoy. And they took me up on it, and they gave them their own show finally, and it was great.
Yeah, it's
It's out of line, but he's right.
one of the other things I really enjoy in the MCU, and they get deep into it in Falcon, is there is Captain America as Steve Rogers, the man, but then there is Captain America as the symbol, and as we find out, also Falcon
Gonna fight a
and
war,
Soldier,
gotta have a uniform.
there were several Captain America throughout.
Yeah.
So just the idea of the mantle is interesting because the only other comic book character I can think about that has that deep is Batman. There's always talk about the cowl, and there's a lot of Batman stuff about
Passing it on.
which one of his proteges will become the Bat or has become the Bat, throughout. And so it's just kind of interesting to me, the idea that when we talk about we're doing an episode on Captain America, it doesn't necessarily mean we're doing a show on just Steve Rogers.
Right, 100%. Yeah, because there's Sam, there's Bucky, there's Isaiah Bradley, there's there've been several, and it's interesting to see what they do with them. Like the revelation. I was so pleased in Falcon and Winter Soldier when they brought in the
Isaiah?
Bradleys, because that just woo-ee.
Right, because the kid becomes Patriot, right?
He sure does. He
Okay.
sure does. And I am unspeakably jazzed about that.
Another little bit of that Young Avengers coming together.
Yep. And I can't wait till they pull everybody together, because it's coming. We know it's coming. But to actually see it and to see his backstory and actually have his backstory told, because that was a fairly obscure comic. When that particular plot line was established, it was not something that was really widely read or popular, and to bring that out into the MCU, I thought was a really choice move.
Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff that they're kind of pulling out right now in the MCU is either newer characters or not as well known characters.
Yeah,
I don't know if Bear, have you seen the newest Thor?
I did.
Not yet, no.
Okay, Leia did.
I
At
just
the
saw
very
that.
end of Thor, you see the introduction of a character that Jen had to look at me and be like, who's that? I'm like, it's a combination of actually 2 characters, and I'm really jazzed with how they're doing it, because that character is not that way at all in the normal comics, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
I was
Yeah.
just thinking about the statement that you made earlier about the mantle of Captain America, and the only other character that's really done that is Batman. And I just started thinking about that. I'm like, is there anybody else,
I can't think
Like,
of
arguably,
anything else
Marvel
that
or
has-
DC? I think the only other place you could really go would be like Thor.
Yeah, Thor and arguably Hawkeye kind of have a
Yes.
little bit of legacy stuff,
Sure.
where it's like, because Hawkeye is still Hawkeye, even though it's Kate Bishop Hawkeye. Thor is still the mighty Thor, except it's Jane Foster,
Or it's Beta
Spider-Man.
Ray Bill.
Spider-Man is another one, where you've got Spider-Man, you've got Miles Morales, you've got,
But those are
Spider-Gwen.
less of like passing the mantle along than we're hopping
Sharing.
in from alternate realities.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, then arguably Hawkeye was the only one I can really think of who, where Clint was just like, all right, kid, here you go,
Right, but I mean,
It's not quite the same. Like,
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
This is long enough for spoilers for Doctor Strange 2, but go ahead and fast forward 30 seconds and hear it. For the example of Peggy showing up with the Captain America mantle in Doctor Strange 2 in the Illuminati,
So good.
it doesn't, like, even Mordo being the Sorcerer Supreme, that's title it's not really a legacy.
Right,
So it
right.
doesn't really count.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like
And-
going down the line, like there is only one Professor X. There's really
Yeah.
only one Stephen Strange. But
I
you look
I
at Peggy
just-
and you're like, that is Peggy with the mantle.
yeah. Yeah, and for the record, I would follow Peggy Carter through the gates of hell. Like that woman.
But not through season 2 and 3 of her own show.
Yes.
Well, I think she went there reluctantly as
I
well.
went there
Yeah.
reluctantly.
No, not you, Peggy.
Both of us went there reluctantly.
Yes.
I feel like, but yeah, no, I actually did not know that she was going to be in that movie, and when I saw her, I legit let out like a little Ned Flanders scream. I was so excited. You know, with the mantle. And even then, that's not. She wasn't Captain America. Then she was Captain Britain.
Captain Carter, yeah.
Captain Carter.
Carter.
But it was a Union Jack on the shield rather
Right.
than a, you know.
Right.
But even still, that's, you know, who that's supposed to be. You know what I
Right.
mean? The audience isn't just like, well, what's going on? You know.
The thing about that scene that made me wonder is, are they, and I haven't checked into the news on this, are they gonna try Fantastic Four again?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's in
Okay.
development.
Yeah.
I like I said,
they-
I hadn't looked it up yet, but
And
Yeah.
whether or not they're swerving us or not, they've said that it's not going to be John again, Reed Richards. That was specifically for that, and it was just to-
that's sad because
Of
he
these
looked like
things.
he was gonna make a real good Reed Richards.
I agree.
And
You
who
mean,
knows?
you mean
Because, like,
Stretch Armstrong?
Feige loves to say shit and like
Yeah.
not and just totally lie. Like
I was just reading an article today actually about how Feige had sent a doctored script to Tom Holland during the end of Endgame, where they had changed it to where he was attending a wedding and not
Yes.
Tony's funeral. And
Yes.
Tom Holland showed up to set and asked where Robert Downey Jr. was.
yes, yeah.
Wow.
That's the kind of thing. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of people need to keep in mind too when they do stuff like that. Is Feige keeps actors in the dark
Yeah.
all the time about anything they're doing. The classic example of this, to bring it back to Captain America, is that Sebastian Stan was not notified that the Winter Soldier movie was going to be the second Captain America film, and he found out through like Twitter because people started congratulating him, and when he's like, they're like, "Oh, dude, how exciting! You must be super pumped!" And he's like, "About what?"
I don't get
Like,
it.
they
What's
made
going
the
on?
announcement and didn't tell him.
That's fantastic.
So I mean, they pull that stuff all the time. So the whole like, and I mean, remember too, you know, prior to No Way Home coming out, you know, there was like, oh no, there's not going to be 3 Spider-Men. You're what are you talking about?
Right.
Y'all are nuts.
Right.
You know, so
I feel like this is where my big entertainment loves kind of smash together of comic books and wrestling, because you don't know what's a shoot and what's a work
yes,
out of Feige. I would not be surprised if Feige is a big fan of professional wrestling. Just the way
yeah,
that he
would not
does
surprise
things.
me in the
Just
least.
yeah.
yeah, absolutely would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form. Really, actually, now that I think about it, there's too many parallels.
Right?
Yeah.
That's just in. Nick Fury is actually MJF. Fuck you, Feige, fire me! You fucking Mark!
Oh man.
Motherfucker, what? Yeah, there's got to be a motherfucker in
That's
there
right.
somewhere.
It's
It's
true.
It's Sam L.
You motherfucking Mark, fire me.
Yeah, like and like it's just it's interesting. Like I'm not sure what they're gonna do for the 4th movie, like who's gonna be the villain, like, you know, anything like that. Like I'm really not sure.
Speaking of good Captain America villains done dirty, which is not what this was about, but I'm gonna jump into it anyway. God damn it, Crossbones at the beginning of Civil War.
Right?
Yeah.
Because once again, Rumlow is throughout all of Winter Soldier, always there, gets a building dropped on him. We see him, you know, being carted away by paramedics at the end, and then he shows up to blow himself up.
Yeah.
Very not Rumlow.
Yeah. It doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense.
Did real dirty.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, although like in video games that I play, Crossbone's power is always blowing himself up.
Yeah, that's kind of his jam, I guess.
I
don't
mean,
know.
really, his only goal is to kill Captain America. So I get if he's gonna try and blow himself up, but
Yeah, like I play Marvel Strike Force, and like his everybody has like their big move that they can do after like turn 3, and his is literally going out, grabbing everyone's attention and exploding. And then like half of his health is down and everybody else takes damage. And I'm like, this does not seem like we already have Nova for this kind of shit.
right?
And Nitro.
Nitro, not Nova, Nitro. Jesus. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like we're watching Heroes, and
Right?
Yeah, like I think they just wanted to establish that this character is Crossbones because he didn't show up that way in Civil War or in Winter Soldier.
Right.
And so I think they just wanted to be like, also this is what happens to him, but anyways, boom. So I mean,
yeah.
it's whatever. But I was happy about the redemption of Zemo.
Oh my god. Another Falcon is going to Falcon in the Winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, apparently the only person smart enough on the face of the earth to actually read the files on the internet.
Yeah, like just super, super good.
And in the end, the hero of heroes, when he stops Ultron from getting all the Infinity Stones in What If.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
Oh, What If? Season 2 coming soon.
Yeah. They just announced yesterday that Captain Carter is going to get another episode to pick up where her cliffhanger in season 1 left off. So
Nice.
I am understandably jazzed about that because that means she gets a parallel Winter Soldier experience. So that will be fun as hell.
Yeah. Also, for those that don't know our recording schedule, we are recording this during Comic-Con weekend, so a lot of news is right. I'm glued to. I have not watched my morning yet because I watched.
You haven't had your morning constitution.
I don't have my morning constitution yet. But I am very excited for like the Marvel panel and a lot of other things about this weekend.
Yeah, yeah. I for sure. I'm certain that we are going to get some updates on what's coming out next year and this, that, and the other things.
Or maybe a peek at the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special that they're going through.
Oh my god, I didn't even realize they were doing one.
They decided to throw it all together while they were filming Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So James Gunn is even directing it.
Yep.
Oh my god, this is gonna be amazing.
It's kind of like a nod to the Star Wars holiday special, except good.
Yes. There will be just a family of Groot just saying "I am Groot" to each other for 15 minutes, like people talking in Wookiee.
I didn't realize we were gonna have Simpsons level like jokes in that movie. Pick up the dead frog with the shoebox lid for like 2 solid minutes on screen.
Anything else Captain America?
No, I just think he's neat, like Marge with a potato.
Just think they're neat.
I just think he's neat. But yeah, like I think that his portrayal in the MCU has been great, regardless of who's holding the mantle at any given time. Sam Wilson / Anthony Mackie is just really great in the role. As I stated earlier, pretty sure they grew Chris Evans in a lab to play Captain America.
Yep.
Gave him a test run as Johnny Storm first.
They stole him from an inferior franchise.
Yes. I like to pretend that movie doesn't exist, and I like to think that they just plucked him straight off of being Lucas Lee and Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
I was about to say,
I forgot about that. Yep.
Yeah, I do like the idea that him and in Captain Marvel were just kind of hanging out in Scott Pilgrim before all of that.
Yes.
We call it a grind, bro.
It's so funny too, because when they announced Captain Marvel and they're like, Brie Larson will be Captain Marvel, and I was like, oh, and V. Adams.
Right. Bear, you have the second volume. You've already started on it. Are you going to finish it?
Probably. I have free time at work sometimes now, so
Right, just leave it on your phone. And
it's on my phone. I use panels on iPhone to read my comics.
Oh, me too.
It's a pretty solid app, actually. I haven't had hardly any problems with it.
Yeah, I haven't had one.
We're on Android and use Comic Cat. Jen, are you going to dip into the second volume? Did it grab you enough?
Probably not. I liked it, but it's not my jam. It's not my jammy jam.
Jam that jam. As for me, I will probably read it. Just enjoy reading comics, and so when I find a comic that grabs me. Plus, this is a part of Marvel history, and likely not something that I see us covering on RetConversations, where I get a lot of the history that I missed.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's where I am with that. What are
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Hang on, wait. What are we doing next?
I really, and I say that I probably won't read it, and mainly I do kind of like not knowing stuff when we go to movies.
Yeah.
I like not knowing, like when somebody shows up on screen and I hear the collective like ooh or gasp in the audience, I'm like, oh, I should probably know who that is, and I'll turn to Josh.
Note to self. Ask Josh.
Who is that?
Note to self. Maybe we should read that. I'm also a big fan of the I'd rather watch it first before I read it.
Okay, I can understand that. We've discussed that on the show.
Yeah, we've had that discussion on this show about how, like, and a lot of it relates to, sitting in a movie theater about to, or in the middle of a Harry Potter movie with your brother, and he just kind of leans over every 10 minutes or so, and he's like, skip 20 pages, skip 50 pages, skip 2 whole chapters. And then I went back and read the books myself, and this was all before we found out that J.K. Rowling was a horrible, horrible turf.
Yes.
And I'm reading through it. It was specifically Goblet of Fire was the one that he was doing that to me on. And I'm reading through Goblet of Fire, and I'm like, there's reasons why they skipped this shit. It's boring. I don't need to watch 3 different fucking Quidditch games in this movie. One will do.
Yeah, no, totally. And well, and with with this particular story arc too, with the Winter Soldier story arc, I mean, it is wildly different from the MCU. The core concepts are there, but like it is not page for page recreation by any stroke of the imagination. But I like how they updated it in the MCU. Like I like how they do that kind of thing where it's especially if stuff is like the wackier comics comics elements of things that just aren't really going to hold up well on film or don't make a lot of sense, but it's there because comics, so
it's interesting just having this conversation with Stacy last night because he's getting on a plane and he's air nervous and he was
I was chatting with him last night.
I
was just texting because I got home, I saw his post and I was just like, oh well, just send you a message. Hey.
But I told him the best comic to any media that I've seen is on Audible. The first 2 volumes of Sandman were done as audio drama.
And that's right.
Fucking phenomenal.
They are so
There
good.
is not a thing from the comic left out of them, but they keep your attention the whole time.
Oh my God. I just remembered that show debuts next month.
It sure does.
Jeez. Oh my God. Okay.
And we may actually need to cover the audio drama as part of the episode for Sandman too, because it was extremely well done.
Right.
As an aside, has nothing to do with Captain America, Winter Soldier, or Marvel in general. Wow, does that show look good the more I see of it?
Yep.
Shit.
Yep.
Like I was cautiously optimistic going in, and more, the more that comes out, the more I'm like, oh man, this might be.
After Good Omens came out, and I knew that Gaiman had the same amount of involvement as he did with Good Omens, I was on board. I knew it would be a good product.
Yeah, I felt that way about the first season of American Gods.
Yeah.
And then they took the rest of it and just wiped their butts with it. And it's a shame because that's my favorite Gaiman work, I think, of all of his stuff. I'll always love the Sandman, but American Gods was 100% like my jam. Everything you need to know about me is contained in that book.
And Neil had a lot of involvement with the first season of American Gods,
did.
and then not so much with the subsequent seasons, which is
it all just fell apart.
Another one that I would recommend to tide you over until Sandman comes out is Neverwhere.
Neverwhere was done as both an audio drama in the BBC, but also as a mini-series.
It's a mini-series.
Very good.
Very good.
I did see the mini-series, and I'll be honest with you, it just wasn't my jam. It was okay. It didn't do much for me. Even the book itself just didn't really, I was like, okay, all right, I guess, it just didn't do a lot for me, but these things happen. Not to say that it's bad, it just wasn't for me.
Sure. No, totally understand. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all Leia, thank you for joining us once again.
Of course.
We'll see you tomorrow when we bring Jenn through the death of Elektra.
I'll have a lot less to say on that.
No, you will though, because it deals with Matt Murdock and his girlfriends. So I'm sure we'll get plenty of opinion from you. Yeah,
I probably won't sit in on that one because it'd just be like, oh, the death of Elektra. My only comment, good.
It's the first 15-minute episode we've ever had.
Right, and then Elektra died.
And Elektra died. Good. Okay. Anybody got anything to say? Nope. All right. Well, take it away, Mandello.
Everybody else, please tune in 2 weeks when we will be doing Logan. We'll be finally doing our episode that we were going to do season 2.
That was season 2 episode that got bumped.
Yep.
What a great movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the Old Man Logan comic, which is nothing like the movie.
Nothing like the movie.
But still, like, another one of those, like, historical parts of Marvel Comics.
And it has wonderful, like, we'll talk about it then, but it has wonderful Hulk representation.
Wonderful? You want to go with
I'm going to go with wonderful.
Okay. Well,
we'll argue about that. Theme.
We'll argue about that in 2 weeks. But until then, take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Come at me, I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, oh can't we all just get along? My mask is no different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it seems.